Let us pray. Great and loving God, we thank you for the gift of your holy word. Your word which teaches us truth and grace and mercy. Your word which gives us counsel and instruction about how to live and love on your earth with your other children. As we open this word to read and proclaim this morning, we pray for the gift of the same Spirit that first caused it to be written, to cause our ears to hear, our hearts and our minds to receive. Silence in us every voice except your own, that by hearing we believe, and that by believing we are your servants. Through Jesus Christ, who is the Lord, we pray. Amen. You stand for the reading of the Gospel lesson. Gospel lesson this morning comes from the Gospel according to St. Luke, chapter 21, and our reading begins with verse 5. Hear the word of the Lord. When some were speaking about the temple, how it was adorned with beautiful stones and gifts dedicated to God, Jesus said, "As for these things that you see, the days will come when not one stone will be left upon another. All will be thrown down." They asked Jesus, "Teacher, when will this be, and what will be the sign that this is about to take place?" And Jesus said, "Beware that you are not led astray. For many will come in my name and say, 'I am he,' and 'the time is near.' Do not go after them. When you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for these things must take place first, but the end will not follow immediately." Then he said to them, "Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and plagues, and there will be dreadful portents and great signs from heaven. But before all this occurs, they will arrest you and persecute you. They will hand you over to synagogues and to prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors because of my name. This will give you an opportunity to testify. So make up your minds not to prepare your defense in advance. For I will give you words and a wisdom that none of your opponents will be able to withstand or contradict. You will be betrayed even by parents and brothers, by relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. You will be hated by all because of my name. But not a hair of your head will perish. By your endurance, you will gain your souls." The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Do you have any favorite words? Now, I'm talking about those words that are fit for public consumption, not the ones that we use when we're watching a college football game that heads in the wrong direction, or when we're playing golf, or when we're standing in the express lane checkout behind the man who has not 12 but 10 times 12 items in his grocery cart. I'm asking about words that conjure up positive thoughts or just sound really cool, or make us appear greatly read, possessing vocabularies that are immense. Do you have any words that you have filed away for just that occasion? Words that, when given a chance, we thrill at the possibility of using them. Serendipitous. It's hard to say that word without a smile coming across your face. It's a wonderful sounding word with a wonderful meaning. We had a series of Sunday school books when I was a teenager at the Coxville Cumberland Presbyterian Church that was called Serendipity. And it was there I learned that serendipitous means a pleasant surprise. It was kind of cool, studying the Bible and engaging in a Sunday school class, resulting in pleasant surprises, we discovered. Serendipitous. Or how about cornucopia? We simply say that means a horn of plenty. In this particular time of year, we will see plenty of cornucopias scattered around in the grocery stores and in the larger chain stores that we will be frequenting. Actually, the word means a goat horn of plenty, usually filled with excessive fruits and vegetables. And all of that signifies abundance and blessing. In Greek mythology, the word calls attention to the story that Zeus was raised on the milk of a goat named Almathea. And one day, while playing in a cave, Zeus accidentally broke one of Almathea's horns, and in remorse, he gave the one horn she had left supernatural powers. Cornucopia. The final word I'll mention today is cacophony. The dictionary says about cacophony, it is a discordant and meaningless mixture of sounds. Think New York City Times Square. Horns blaring, tires squealing, a panhandler ringing a bell, a taxi cab driver using a couple of his favorite words to hopefully speed up traffic. It's a wonderful mixture of the out-of-step rhythm and the non-rhyming verse that is life lived frantically and hectic. But I would also argue that a cacophony of sound does not have to be hard on our ears. I think back to spring and summer nights of my childhood with bedroom windows open and cool breezes blowing, bringing comfort and washing the room with the sounds of pastoral nights, crickets chirping, tree frogs singing, pond frogs croaking. If I close my eyes and focus deeply on the memories of those nights, I can hear that sound, those sounds emerging in the recesses of my mind. A cacophony of sounds without any natural connection. Croak of the frog, the chirp of the cricket, the buzz of the nighttime insects, disconnected and discordant in their note and meter, and yet a wonderful mixture of sound. A sleep aid better than melatonin or Lunesta. Just this wonderful, discordant harmony of sound. And I would lay there listening and drifting, almost asleep. The room filled with many sounds, but I would refuse sleep like any good southerner until I heard not just a sound, but a voice. A voice of the night, struggling sometimes to keep awake and alert until that voice would rise in the song of the night bird somewhere out there in the darkness. The haunting voice of searching and longing, only when the whippoorwill called could night and sleep truly fall on those spring and summer evenings. And I still find myself, even now, though I'm removed from that rural tranquility, listening for that voice and only occasionally hearing it. But when I do, I sleep the sleep of rest and peace with no regret or fear, as though I am once again safe in my parents' house. Out of every cacophony, every discordance, mixture of sounds. If we listen hard enough, there will be one true voice that speaks to us above everything else. Now, Jesus had just finished watching a poor woman put all she had into the temple treasure. Those were the first 4 verses of the 21st chapter. And the buzz of the activities of the temple had not caused Jesus to lose sight of that single most important event taking place. But everyone else had missed it. Jesus had called their attention to her, pointing out that she, above everyone else, had given the most because she had given out of her poverty and not her abundance. Their attention, though, was focused on the magnificence and the activity of the temple. Now, the historian Josephus has written that the gold covering the temple was so immense and spectacular that when the sun rose and the rays struck the walls, the glare was so brilliant that you had to avert your eyes. He also noted that the vast white marble boulders that were placed into the temple were so white that from a distance the temple appeared to be a snow-capped mountain rising from the center of Jerusalem. The temple was immaculate and enormous and beautiful. And it was the center of everyone's attention. Jesus is too. But for a different reason than the opulence that attracted the others. Jesus calmly remarked to those who called his attention to the temple, even as he was calling their attention to a poor woman, that soon the stones would be torn down and the temple would lay in rubble. The temple, as great as it is, Jesus said, is just one more ingredient in the mix of the sounds of life. And that was only one of the words Jesus spoke that day outside the temple that caused some brows to furrow. He also spoke plainly about the normal events of history. Wars, rumors of wars, earthquakes, and other natural events of creation. Jesus told them about these things so they would not be alarmed when they occurred. And he told them they don't particularly point to any particular thing. You certainly can't fix the end of time on these things. Because history is full of nation rising against nation and great devastations falling upon the earth. Don't panic when any of this happens. See it for what it is. Take it for what it is. Another discordant mix of sounds that we have to hear. Well, the disciples pressed Jesus on these words, asking for some further instruction as to the when and the how. And Jesus told them that one thing they should be on guard about was other people who claim to have all the answers. Eugene Peterson in The Message uses this wonderful phrase here, calling those folks who claim to know it all the doomsday deceivers. And we've heard them shout out before. The end is here. The time has come. Drink this. Go to this mountain and wait. Follow me. And like Jesus says, they don't know what they're talking about. And all we've ever really heard from any of these deceivers is a story of death and destruction of families and lives. And finally, Jesus says a word that must have struck at the heart of those who were following him. He said to them, "There is no escape for you. You are not going to be spared anything because you are my follower. As a matter of fact, because you are my follower, because you carry my name, you'll be arrested, betrayed, handed over to the temple authorities, turned away by family and friends, and yes, some will even die because they are associated with Jesus. Even so, on that day, Jesus told them to hold fast to their faith and trust in God to be at work in their life, because no matter what they face and no matter who they face, God's Spirit will minister to them and give them the words, the strength, the faith to see through whatever it is you're seeing through. Jesus said, God will not lose you. Well, that all sounds swell, I guess, especially that last part about God not losing us. Even though it's a bit hard to figure out what it means for us in Mount Pleasant in 2019. I mean, hopefully we've come far enough in our study of science and history of the world to know that what Jesus said has great legitimacy. Wars are going to happen. Earthquakes are going to occur. There will be tornadoes in the south, winter storms in the north, tsunamis and earthquakes along the ocean's coastlines. Nations are not going to get along. This is not a new story. And the world is not ending because of any of these things. And even Jesus' very last word, that word about persecution and arrest and death coming to those who follow Jesus, is a foreign word to us. Here, where we live, we don't face that. I mean, none of us came to church this morning worried about being arrested or carried away to jail before we get back home. Our biggest concern, beating the Baptists and the Methodists, the Herschels or the jalapeno tree. So what gives with this lesson, with this gospel, these words? I've struggled with that all week. Far from being an all-knowing pastor, I'm afraid you are stuck with me. I can't completely tell you. I don't really know what all of this means. And I don't want to venture very far out on that limb. I'm afraid Jesus would laugh at what my assumptions might be, or Eugene Peterson might call me a dumb doomsday deceiver too. So I'll simply remind us of this. Today is the last Sunday of ordinary time. Next Sunday will be Christ the King, and the Sunday after that will be the first Sunday of Advent. We have traveled through Luke's Gospel in this ordinary time, and we have seen and heard some extraordinary things. People lost were found. Things lost were found. Folks were saved. Communities were restored. Ordinary people heard the call of Jesus and got up from their routine days and followed along the way, making a difference in the life of those they encountered. Jesus has taught followers to be compassionate, to love completely, to regard everyone as worthy, to be gentle and meek, and to live peaceably, and to seek God's justice and God's righteousness, and above everything else, to love God with all that we have, and to love our neighbors like we love ourselves. So now, in the church's calendar, our ordinary time is done. And Jesus' final ordinary word to us, well, maybe it's this. The world is filled with competing values, and we will be pulled toward many of them. The only true value, though, is a committed life of discipleship, proclaiming in our words and in our deeds the good news of the kingdom of Jesus Christ our Lord. That's what matters. That's what really matters. And when the world is really pulling hard at us to turn away from the life of a disciple, there are lots of sounds that the world can make. And some of them will be quite attractive. Maybe even coming from the church or those closely connected. Listen carefully. Listen with your ears, but also with your heart and with your mind and with your faith. It is a cacophony out there. A discordant mixture of sounds. But even so, one voice. Calm. Leading. Saving. Follow that voice. And be at peace. As we are all about to discover again. Regardless of what we hear, regardless of what we see. Emmanuel. God is with us. That's about the best good news any one person could say to another group of people. God is with us. Thanks be to God. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.